Good afternoon. My name is Aleksey Chernykh, and I'm the leading specialist in the Rostelecom. Today we'll be speaking about leaks, all kinds of leaks, not only leaks from databases, but all the way to the leaks of the shadow resources, different online stores, and yes, leaks are usually happen in all kinds of companies and the small business and even the common developers sometimes allow this to happen. Sometimes we hear about different cases. Today we'll consider several cases of how to identify these inside cases, what to do with this. We will also look at the leaks from the logs, credentials, configuration files, and we'll try to find the password from the database without even approaching to a database, and simply without collecting the whole bunch of leaks. In addition to cases, we'll discuss what can be found, why things are leaking away, and where you can find it right here and right now, and how should you look for it in the future. We'll be discussing the right monitoring process and the process of finding the links. So we'll be speaking about the metrics, because to monitor attack is simply impossible during the attack, but we can model certain threats and to avert these threats prior to attack. Let's begin by saying that before looking for something, you have to understand what you're looking for. For a company, these could be corporate documents, original files, tech information, contracts, you name it. Each company has its own list. You simply have to build two lists. Number one would be the files you would like to find, and the second one is the text data, because you will be looking for these two things differently. In terms of the text information, you have to look for your search option, how of the big flow of data you'll find what you need. This could be irregular expressions, keywords, sim, mean, hash, or the flexible search. And you have to take into account that the attackers are smart, and if they'll be writing something about you at the forum or social media, they will be, using their own pronunciation, slang, abbreviations of your company, you name it, so that you would never be able to find them. Also, mind it that we are going to be using a lot of different search engines, web search engines, or search functions and different resources. Their search algorithms are different, and one phrase, one word could be decided into like words. Each word will be normalized in the nominative case, and then all the documents will be found which have the same word or expression. So it would be sensible to make two sets for search. With one, we are finding in search engines what we like, and secondly, we verify that this information is right. In addition to that, for files, we also can find several approaches. That is, we have two files, for example. I want to compare them. The classical approach would be like in TI and everywhere to count MD5 and SHA-1, SHA-256 hashes. They will be different for different files. It's aggravated by situation. If you'll just open the document in Word, the Word can add some information, and the document will be different, even though you did not change anything in a document. So MD5 hash does not suit for this goal. Also, it's a cryptographic hash function. For 100 documents, there'll be no difference, quick calculation. But if you have there like a million documents, it will create some additional challenges. And I would recommend to look towards a city hash. It's quite fast. It's good for this kind of tasks. Also, there's a SSDeep hash just for searching for malware when it's been reconfigured. When there are certain changes in a file, it works just great, but it's also quite slow. You can use a look for files by YARA rules, but the YARA rules we first have to write, which means the manual task, which we would like to avoid. Another approach is we have the text data. We can extract all the text and to make a comparison like I described for the text file. For example, you can use the sim hash and min hash algorithms, which enable you to compare just how different two texts are. But you should not use them just everywhere, because if the particular wording on the structure of the text will be changed, the sim hash will show you a big differences in the text. That would be good to use for deleting the duplicates. If one link has been published in the forum, somebody just, let's say, quoted it in social media. Okay, we understand what we are going to look for. We've built the list of files, the text, we have the list of signatures and search methods. But next we have to understand why this could leak at all. I will be very brief. We had many discussions about that, and the main reasons are insiders who decided to make money, to leak data of yours or your clients, or simply to cause harm to your company, including the ciphering. Also, there is a low qualification leaks, and because of the lack of knowledge, many people do not know that to upload corporate files could be a bad idea because people can get access to them. We are humans, and to err is human. We may forget things. Oftentimes, admins they forget to delete backups which they installed in the core of their web service. Sometimes they upload some data on the Git and then forget to clean it up. And of course, compromising. You should not forget about it. If the email of your top manager has been compromised and then or the whole database has been stolen and published on the forum, knowing what we're looking for and what are the reasons, we can assume of where we could find this information and how. It's a green field. Let's begin with web resources. A classic case would be when somebody forgot a file on the web server, be it the configuration files or setting files or the database dumps, you name it. This can be identified by search engines and darks and by the phasing or manual scanning. But there are some tricks here in case we're using the search engine and darks. Then we have the problem, because the search engines, they do not like bots, and they are defending themselves. There are some additional limitations, and more often than not, you will run into that. It is not that difficult. You can solve this problem, but if it's a dark 4,000 darks, like in DHCP, this could mean certain differences. Difficulty. So many resources, for example, the SMM and advertisement, it's a problem. They always need to monitor just how popular their website is in terms of the search engine optimization. CRPI is a resource. It makes inquiries to Google and then it gives you a JSON. It's not a cheap solution, but this is also an option. Or we can just do it by hand. Do this capture, but 4,000 captures, I don't want to do it. I will go to the anti-capture services which solve this kind of capture. Or we can do it differently. We cannot allow the captures. You have to change IP addresses, do inquiries and different times of change cookies, change your titles and heads, imitate your user's behavior, and many other problems which you have to solve, which is very dubious. Another option I would like to offer you is basically if you go like through the phasing. As an example, on the left, it's example of under the case when internal documentation of one government became available simply because they forgot to limit access to one folder. You can identify it with phasing. You have to identify what kind of files you want to find on the web server. You can go to back hunters and ask them to give the interesting files. Go to pen testers to get something from them or from item number first with the files. We can add also them to the dictionary, then take Gerpaster, Bofast, and go to the server and to look for these files. But if to do it not once each quarter, but every week or every day, because attackers are doing it always. Also, if the website is a web, you have to bypass it somehow. You have to switch it off at the production. It's not a best idea. The next thing would be the file service leaks. I mean, not only FTP service, but also C-Files, Nextcloud, or Amazon bucket. We'll consider only those where the authorization is switched off. At this kind of service, oftentimes you can find documents and files, contracts. Very often, if you see that, usually it is happening because somebody from the regional department, let's say, or from partners, had to be, handed documents so they open access to everyone. You can find it with search engines. They're scanning internet and indexing files such as search FTPS or Greyhead for buckets. But there is also a problem. When yesterday I was double checking all of that, I think Mac and Search FTPs did not work very well. They're unstable. We do not know how often they do the scanning. And to look for that, it's very difficult because if I will find some leaks via them, then these leaks I will highlight to them. So I want to come myself and begin to scan internet with mass scan that maps or sensors. Much has been mentioned about that, many articles have been published. I do not want to dig deep into that, but one aspect is there are very few programs enabling you to index FTPR. Very few of them are published on the open source or GitHub, but at the FTP you can find a lot of interesting things. For example, if you look at the right slide, you can see a lot of videos and strange things, but also you can find some collections of the leaks, its own exploits and leaks, and then some company documentation which has been found in one of the FTPs in Russia. Next, the class of leaks which are becoming more popular. It's databases leaks without authorizations. We've heard about the database via Elastic, ClickHouse, and many other databases. You can look for them also through by scanning internet yourself or using external services. But I couldn't find any good services, so you have to do it yourself. You can do yourself Mascan and Census and Shodan, or you use the Memcache Data or ClickDown programs. And convenience is that this kind of programs, which would be indexing databases, they are huge. You can choose anything. Those will be more convenient. The next topic, very painful, is the original Git repository. Oftentimes, in addition to the original files, you can find configuration files, logs, forgot backups and dumps, or create. To look for this kind of leaks, we can find the search engine which is built into Git, for example, GitHub, and Dork written for it. But also for the GitHub, there's also events IP, a TPI, which enables you in real time to collect all the public events which are happening on the GitHub. Each commit, each push, merge, request, everything you can collect it, and in real time you can trace it. What are the challenges? One of them is writing dorks. It sounds easy, but it's a huge problem because open dorks there are awful. As an example, the domain password, it's a classical dork. There's a huge number of cases it misses. If your testers, they're usually going for IPv4, IPv6. They use domain very rarely. Or if the internal server of the company is being tested, you cannot use the public domain. You're using internal domain, for example, mycompany.local. Or if you're in the Active Directory, my.company will be my DC company. And your domain simply will not be any other words. And also another case like GDBC, where you can pass the passwords and URL, but the keyword password will not be there. And now let's consider also that for each language there are their own databases and syntaxes of description. For example, for Python, I built a list of libraries which could be used for working with different databases, and I described different dogs for them. It was an experiment of mine. And here you can see a lot of libraries. You cannot find any like password or token words, only authorization in one place. Unfortunately, the output of these dorks is quite arguable, but for Alexa Top 100 it works very well, and you can find leaks with biggest companies at least. Next will be past. We know that admins are very evil, they load up the logins. It's a problem still persists, it's a very relevant problem. To look for these kind of leaks is possible if you do web search engines, Google, Yandex, Bing, or using built-in search engine, which is very rare, or the most popular way in real time. You collect all the documents from the resource and to look for any new lines, text lines, or files coming into them. There's a huge number of programs and services, be it Elfom Infor, Paste Hunter, or PWBin. Also, a lot of companies provide it as the brand protection service. But one detail, important detail, almost all of them are monitoring only the popular Paste.bin, GitHub, and many people do not monitor anything other. But the problem is that, for example, in our case, when we speak about the company's subsidiaries, Paste.bin could be blocked, but the admins used to working with them, but they are blocked right now. They'll just open the Google and find a different path and will be posting into that. Most of these programs and framework and brand protection, it's very difficult for them to get or add any new resource. Even though it is an open source, it's simply incredibly difficult sometimes to add just a new resource. Governor code, whatever, the bust into these frameworks. Next would be forums. It's a topic for several hours. We can be easily talking for hours about that. we are interested not only about the dork forums, but also about legitimate forums. Sometimes in one forum, the guys are discussing new electric car. It's electric car. It's a super, but in the other branch, they are discussing of how to get the money from the next ATM or steal the money from ATM. It's a problem. We need to get this info from the huge number of the forum threads, but it's not that difficult to monitor that because the forums sometimes are so dark. They're greatly indexed by the web searches. For example, many of you have heard about Freaker forum or Lomziti BHF. It's simply just the top of the iceberg. Even that is indexed. But if you dig down, you can find much more interesting and even absurd things. At all forums, you can see RSS or the Atom thread. You can collect the news, or you can write your own parser, because all the forums are using three engines except for WebLute, Ballot.in. I don't know how to read it correctly, or panel board. But here we also have a huge number of complexities because in our forums, for example, we have 10 or 20. To register an account and to pump it through to have a good reputation and to get access to the closed sections is not that easy. For 10, 20 it may be okay. But let's say we're monitoring about 80 forums right now. And to keep 80 accounts and pumped up accounts would be very, very difficult. It kills a lot of time, and sometimes it's even easier just to neglect some of them. On a separate note, all the forums are using DOS Protect, Cloudflare, or custom Jensen scripts because oftentimes one forum is attacking the other. It's an internal problem. We cannot parse Python requests. We have to use the Serena, which will render JavaScript, or we can use the census to bypass Cloudflare and to find a real IP address. Basically, all the forums are tuned up incorrectly. Also, at the forums, sometimes anti-bot is coming back, different systems. At all the forums, you can see a page with a recent user activity. If one user at 2 a.m. is coming into the recent messages section, it's suspicious, sounds funny, but we've been kicked out from the three forums. Also, do not use the search engine for the forums to look for information about your company, because any inquiries, any search inquiries in the search line on the forums are being traced and tracked, and then you can see the separate topic about your company. It will be done just for you. Usually, three engines are used in different versions. One parse for one forum, but you can parse 10 forums. But it's a huge advertisement. But advertisement is so much, it simply kills the structure of the page, and the browser is smart, is correcting mistakes. And in case if you're parsing on the Python, you can also find the link which will correct it, or correct it with your hands, which is not very convenient. The next would be file share leaks and torrent tracker leaks. With file shares, I means like Yandex, Omega, Mail, SendSpace, and others. They mostly take care of the security and privacy of their users. So it's simply to take all the files which have been added, you cannot do it. Or it is very difficult, or it is illegal. So we have to monitor social media, or to monitor forums and pages, and to look for this kind of links. After that, you can download the files and see what you have. I would recommend you to consider, if you'll be doing this, Gigant Holders and Payloader, JLoader and Payload. They give them the link and they upload the file. Sounds like a simple task, but if you have several thousands of links, believe me, it's not an easy task. On a separate note, we could speak about torrents. For torrent trackers, torrents can be monitored in different ways via torrent trackers. For example, you have a framework, Tulsa Jacker, which enables you to do the search and indexation of a huge number of torrent trackers. Part of the trackers are open, and you can easily see what's available, what's the new things, and find some information. But the other part of forums usually is closed. You have to look for invites and simply to search for them on the internet, or simply to pump up your reputation to give away something to get the access. On a separate note, a hashtag network, it's a distribution of the hash table. When you are getting this kind of link, you get a hash. Your client will be looking for this hash among the different network clients. Your computer will go to the other, will ask, do you have this kind of file with this kind of hash? If not, then who has it? As a result, this is an open network. We can connect to this our own agents, which will be listening to all these inquiries. And to collect this information, index it for our purposes, you can use one of the open TorSnif, for example, TorSnif. or one of the open projects and to keep the local base, or to use the existing services which will be indexing everything for you and will be giving you the search opportunities. One of the most popular was BetaDig, but about a month or 2 months ago, for some reason, it quit working. But fortunately, there are a lot of Chinese mirrors, and you can find quite a good leaks, 600 gigs worth. The data may not be relevant, but all the data is correct. VirusTotal and the hybrid analyzers. These services, many have heard about them. You may upload a file, and the service will tell you just how malignant this file is, what do you do, sandbox it or do something else. To look for leaks of these kind of resources, you'll have to use either the search engines or to use built-in functionality or the custom parsers. For example, on Aristotle, you can build for the monitoring certain YARA rules. As soon as it will work, you will get your alert. As for the good programs which will be enabled to search, there are not that many. Even those that you can see, they're not very good. They're not very convenient. The shops and auctions, actually, there are a lot of problems with them because they're shadow. They're so shadow that almost all of them do not index by the search engines, which is surprising. Main problem with these is to find them. You'll have to go to different forums and different resources to look for them, but eventually it's not that difficult to find them. Then you have to register and you get access to a shop. All shops have the pages with the recently added merchandise. It increases loyalty, people see that you can buy right away things which were not available before. And shops could be different in the auctions. Here I've shown you the account selling shops. Oftentimes, on the left, the shops has never been developed for the shadow tasks, and it sells a lot of good things. But there is a separate, section for accounts like the banking, CRV, they sell whatever, you name it. It's easy to parse them. The main problem is to find and to get invite. There are a lot of automated programs. There are no automated programs. You have to do everything manually. Social media, social networks. I'm not very enthusiastic. There are a lot of articles about SMM, a lot of articles from the safety security guys. I gave you on the right the list of the programs which are being used to analyze Twitter, for example. You can look through the web searches, do the real-time monitoring, for example, stream and IP. You can give the keywords, and you can get all the notions about these keywords at these resources. Or you can monitor specific users, the groups and the pages and channels. One of the main problems, like in the forums also, you have to have good accounts which are in the closed groups to monitor the data from these groups. You also have to look different information like documents and notions about documents, pictures from office, from the corporate party, you name it. News would be the last thing where you can look for information. They're very arguable because usually at the news resources, journalists are publishing something if they found something, like the blackmail for your boss or something else. But the question is, why do we need to monitor them? Because the scandal is just about to erupt. Very often, many news resources and scandals, they break out with a small publication in the newspaper, in a magazine, or any other publication. Then a couple of hours later, it begins to be cited in all the journals and magazines. If you find the source, number one, at least you'll have like 2 hours before everyone else to make the press release, to delete materials from the internet, and to get any kind of report, response to the press, or mitigate possible reputation damage. But in the aspect of the news, it's very easy to monitor the news. A lot of news aggregators, searching machines, and almost all of them have the Atom and RSS. It's very simple and convenient. Knowing how all of this can be leaking away, what it may be leaking, what are the reasons, let's consider some cases, and hopefully we'll be able to do it today. Case number one. The attackers created the phishing page or the malignant site to collect different kind of data by users like email, passwords, date of birth, sex, age. Then this data is stored on the web server. It's very difficult to use the external database, so simply they put it in the text files, for example, like on the screenshot, sometimes not even limiting access to the folder with logs, which you can upload and keep using. After they've collected this database, they use it for their own purposes. It's a phishing website. They're trying to go to the users' accounts. If it's a fraudsters, they're trying to do the frauds, though they get what they want, but they still get the database, which they do not need anymore. Usually after that, they simply upload it at the different forums, like a private information for others to be able to take advantage of it. After that, another category of the